Caleb Ironwood pulled the reins, ready to turn back, when something in the distance froze him where he sat. 5 wooden poles stood alone in the open field, baking under the brutal desert sun. Shapes hung from them, moving slowly as the hot wind passed through. At first, Caleb thought they were dead. His chest tightened as he rode closer. Then he saw their hands move. They were not bodies. They were women. His horse stepped forward carefully as the truth hit him like a blow. 5 young Apache women were tied upside down by thick ropes wrapped tight around their ankles. Their hair fell toward the burning sand, tangled and heavy. Blood ran from their scraped wrists, dripping down their arms and falling into the dirt. Below, crows circled above, crying out, waiting. The youngest one barely moved at all. Her chest rose in shallow breaths, each one weaker than the last. The sun had drained the life from her small body. The eldest sister still fought to lift her head, even as the blood rushed into her face, turning it dark and swollen. Her eyes found Caleb's and locked onto him with desperate strength. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Save us. I will do anything. I will give you my body. I will bear your child. Just save my sisters." Caleb did not move for a moment. He had heard men beg on battlefields. He had heard women cry in sickness and hunger. But this was different. This was not desire. This was a sister offering herself so the others could live. He swung down from his horse and pulled his knife free. Without a word, he cut the rope of the youngest first. Her body dropped into his arms, light as a child. Then the second, then the third. He worked fast, sweat burning his eyes, the sun tearing into his back. When he cut down the eldest, she collapsed against his chest, shaking. "You're safe now," Caleb said quietly. "No one is dying here today." He laid them in the thin shade cast by the poles and made 3 trips back and forth to his ranch, lifting each woman onto his horse and riding through heat that felt like fire. By the time he brought the last one home, his vision swam, but he did not stop. He poured water into his hand and let it drip gently onto their lips, careful not to rush their weak bodies. The youngest clutched his fingers. 2 others gasped for air, lungs fighting to remember how to breathe. The eldest opened her eyes but could not speak. Caleb knelt beside her and placed a cool cloth on her forehead. Her eyes were tired, bloodshot, but still alive with something. "Fierce. What I said out there," she whispered at last. Caleb shook his head. "Forget it. You said it to save your sisters. I understand." She turned her face away, shame burning inside her. Then he spoke again, his voice steady and calm. "No one here has to trade their body to live. Not with me." The words fell heavy, and, still in the room, these women had grown up being looked at as things to be owned. And here stood a man who asked for nothing. Days passed at Ironwood Ranch. Caleb cooked, cleaned wounds, and kept watch through long nights. He worked quietly, never crossing a line, never taking a second look that made them feel small. Slowly, life returned to them. The youngest began to smile. 2 sisters learned to stand again. One insisted on helping in the barn even while shaking. Only the eldest still struggled. Pain caught her breath when she moved. One afternoon, light poured through the window as Caleb changed her bandages. She watched him closely, not with fear, but with thought. "That day," she said softly, "I thought I was going to die. I just wanted my sisters to live." "I know," Caleb replied. "You owe me nothing." Silence filled the space between them. Then she spoke again, her voice firm. "But today, I want to say those words again. Not from fear, from choice." Caleb froze. "My whole life," she continued, "men took what they wanted from me. You did not. You saved me without taking anything. That is why I choose. She reached for his hand. Caleb pulled back gently. "I will not touch you while you are weak," he said. "And I will never take you because you feel you owe me." She smiled, a real smile, light and free. "This is not a debt. This is my decision." Before he could answer, the distant sound of horses rolled across the land like thunder. Dust rose against the horizon. Caleb's eyes hardened. He stepped to the door and reached for his rifle. "They've found us," he said. And outside, the night began to close in. The sound of hooves grew louder, tearing through the quiet like a warning from the earth itself. Caleb stood on the porch, rifle resting in his hands, not raised in anger, but ready. Torches flared in the distance, their flames twisting in the night wind. The sisters gathered inside, fear moving through them like a cold shadow. The eldest stood despite the pain, her back straight, her eyes sharp. "It is him," she said. "Morgan Wade." Caleb nodded. I know, he had known this moment would come. Men like Wade did not lose what they believed they owned without blood or fire. What they did not know was that Caleb had not waited in silence. On the first night, when the eldest sister still drifted in and out of sleep, he had sent a telegram to the nearest town. He had used clear words. 5 Apache women. Held, tortured, and sold. Morgan Wade involved. Come now. Outside, horses screamed as they were pulled hard to a stop. A dozen men surrounded the ranch, faces hidden by hats and firelight. At their center sat Morgan Wade on a black horse, his smile sharp and cruel. Caleb Ironwood, Wade, shouted, "Bring them out. They belong to me." Caleb stepped forward into the light. "They belong to no one." Wade laughed. "Apache girls are not people. I bought them fair." "You think you are big enough to stand against me?" Caleb did not answer. He stood firm, like the ground beneath his boots. Wade leaned forward, eyes burning. Last chance. Before he could move again, a sharp whistle cut through the night. Horses thundered in from the west. Deputies poured into the yard, guns raised. At the front rode Sheriff Allen, his voice steady and loud. "Morgan Wade, you are under arrest for kidnapping, torture, and trafficking." Chaos followed. Wade's men panicked. Some ran, others dropped their weapons. Wade spun his horse, trying to flee, but a warning shot stopped him cold. He was dragged down and pressed into the dirt, his hands bound. Inside the house, the sisters watched through the window. The eldest felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest. Safety, not borrowed. Not temporary. Real. When it was over, Caleb came back inside. "It's done," he said quietly. "No one will hurt you again." The next morning, the sheriff returned with papers stamped in red. He spoke slowly, carefully. "All debt contracts tied to your tribe were forgeries. You owe nothing. You are free." The youngest cried first. Another sister wrapped her arms around her. One collapsed to her knees, shaking. Freedom felt heavier. Then chains at first. Plans were made to return to the tribe. They missed the land, the fire, the drums. As they spoke, the eldest listened quietly. Her eyes kept drifting to Caleb. That evening, she found him in the stable. "Do you think I should go with them?" she asked. He did not look at her. "Yes, that is where you belong. You owe me nothing." She stepped closer and placed her hand on his arm. "That is why I want to stay. I choose this." Days passed after the sisters left. The ranch grew quiet. Caleb and the eldest worked side by side. He taught her to ride, to read the wind, to fix what was broken. At night, they talked by lamplight. When she came to him, it was by her own will. But Caleb's body was not young. One afternoon, he lifted a heavy sack of feed, and the world went dark. He fell hard to the ground. She ran to him, fear sharper than any blade she had known. She cradled his head, tears falling onto his face. "Do not leave me," she whispered. "You saved me. Let me save you." All night she stayed awake, pressing. Water to his lips, speaking his name again and again. When his eyes finally opened, weak but alive, she laughed and cried at once. "You are crying," he said faintly. "If you can see that," she replied, "you are still here." As dawn broke, she rested her head against his chest, listening to his heart. She understood then, love was not something taken. It was something chosen, again and again, and outside. The ranch stood quiet, holding a new kind of promise in its dust and light. Caleb healed slowly. Each morning he could stand a little longer, walk a little farther, before the weakness returned and forced him to rest. The eldest sister stayed close, never leaving him alone for long. She laughed when he tried to act strong, and he smiled when she scolded him for lifting too much. In those small moments, something gentle and unbreakable grew between them. One quiet evening, Caleb took her to the field behind the ranch. Fresh green grass pushed through the red earth, stubborn and alive. The wind moved softly across the land, carrying the smell of dust and promise. She stood there, hair catching the light, no longer the woman who had hung helpless under the sun, but someone reborn. "I thought my life ended the day I found you in that field," Caleb said. "But it began instead." She looked at him with calm eyes. "I thought I was born only to endure," she replied. "You showed me I could choose." Caleb took a breath and knelt before her, his movements slow but sure. "I do not have much. Just this land, these hands, and what is left of my heart. If you will have them, I give them freely." She knelt with him, took his hands, and placed them gently against her stomach. "There is new life here," she said softly, "not from fear, not from debt, from love." Caleb's breath caught. Tears came without shame. He held her close. As the sun dipped low, painting the land in gold and red, "I say yes," she whispered, "because I choose you." In the days that followed, Ironwood Ranch felt alive in a way it never had before. They worked together, rested together, and healed together. Love did not rush them. It settled quietly, like roots finding water deep beneath the ground. What began with desperation ended in freedom. What was once taken was now given willingly. And in the wide, open land where death had once waited, two souls chose life, together, with no chains left behind.